Ethan just wanted help on his lonely ranch. Instead, he found Lily, a young girl being sold by her cruel stepmother. He saved her, thinking he was just being kind. Neither knew that this rescue would lead to love and heal both their broken hearts. Before watching full story, comment below from where you watching. Also like and subscribe for more stories. The truck rumbled to a stop in front of the dilapidated farmhouse. Dust from the long dirt driveway settled around the vehicle as Ethan Miller's weathered hands gripped the steering wheel. His blue eyes narrowed at the sight before him. "This can't be right," he muttered to himself, double-checking the crumpled paper with an address scrawled on it. But it was the correct place. The mailbox, tilted at an awkward angle by the roadside, confirmed it. 4891 Hollow Creek Road. Ethan stepped out of his truck, boots crunching on gravel. At 42, his tall frame still carried the strength of his younger years, though streaks of gray now peppered his dark hair beneath his worn cowboy hat. He'd come here today on business, unusual business for a rancher like himself. A woman emerged from the house, her bleached blonde hair piled high, makeup too heavy for the afternoon heat. She wore tight jeans and a low-cut top that seemed at odds with the rural setting. "You must be Mr. Miller," she called out, her voice carrying a false sweetness. "Right on time." Ethan nodded stiffly. "Ma'am?" His stomach twisted with every step toward the porch. What he was about to do felt wrong in every way, but he reminded himself of the desperate situation that had brought him here. "She's inside," the woman said, eyeing the envelope in Ethan's hand. "Got her things packed and ready?" "I'd like to speak with her first," Ethan said firmly. The woman, Sandra Owen according to their correspondence, rolled her eyes. "Not much for talking, that one. But suit yourself." She held out her hand. "Payment first." Ethan hesitated. The envelope contained $5,000 in cash, his savings from 3 years of careful budgeting after his wife died. Money he'd been saving for his son's college fund. But Tommy was gone now too, taken by the same cancer that claimed his mother. The ranch was failing and Ethan needed help, desperately. When he'd seen the advertisement discreetly placed in the back pages of an agricultural newsletter, "Young woman available for farm work and domestic duties," he'd been skeptical. The follow-up phone call with Sandra had clarified the shocking truth. She was selling her stepdaughter's labor contract. Practically selling the girl herself. "I'll pay after I meet her," Ethan said firmly. Sandra's smile faltered, but she stepped aside. "Fine. She's in the back room." The inside of the house smelled of cigarettes and cheap perfume. Ethan removed his hat as he walked through, noting the empty liquor bottles on the kitchen counter and the general state of neglect. A door at the end of a narrow hallway stood closed. Sandra knocked once, then pushed it open without waiting for a response. "Your new boss is here," she announced. The sight that greeted Ethan made his blood run cold. A young woman sat on the edge of a bare mattress, her shoulders hunched, eyes downcast. A single duffel bag rested at her feet. She was thin, too thin, with long chestnut hair that fell forward, partially obscuring her face. When she looked up, Ethan caught his breath. Despite the fading yellow bruise around her left eye, her face had a delicate beauty. But it was the emptiness in her gaze that struck him most. "This is Lily," Sandra said dismissively. 19, healthy, knows how to cook and clean. Not much good at anything else. Lily flinched at the words but remained silent. Ethan cleared his throat. "Could I have a moment alone with her?" Sandra looked suspicious but shrugged. 5 minutes. Then we finish our business." She left, closing the door behind her. For a long moment Ethan stood awkwardly, hat in hand. Finally, he pulled over a rickety chair and sat, bringing himself to eye level with the young woman. "My name's Ethan Miller," he began softly. "I own a cattle ranch about 50 miles from here." Lily nodded but didn't speak. Ethan struggled to find the right words. "This situation isn't right. I came here thinking I was hiring help for my ranch, not..." He trailed off. "Buying a person?" Lily finished, her voice barely audible but with an unexpected edge. Ethan winced. "Yes. And I won't be part of it." He stood up, ready to leave. "Please." The word stopped him. Lily was looking at him now, really looking at him, her green eyes suddenly alive with desperation. "Please don't leave without me." Ethan hesitated. "What's going on here?" "She's been trying to sell me off for months," Lily whispered, glancing nervously at the door. "The last man who came." She shuddered. "I've been her prisoner since my father died 3 years ago. She's got gambling debts. Big ones. I'm her payment plan." Ethan felt sick. "Have you tried running?" "Police." Lily gave a bitter laugh. "Her boyfriend is a deputy sheriff. And she's got my ID, my birth certificate. Everything. I've got nowhere to go, no money. Tears filled her eyes. If you leave without me, the next person might not be as decent. Ethan ran a hand through his hair, his mind racing. Everything about this screamed danger and complication, the last things he needed in his life. But looking at Lily's bruised face, he couldn't walk away. Get your bag, he said quietly. You're coming with me. But not as a servant or whatever she had in mind. You'll be safe, I promise you that. We'll figure the rest out later. Relief washed over Lily's face as she stood, grabbing her duffel bag. Thank you, she whispered. When they emerged from the room, Sandra was waiting impatiently. Her eyes narrowed at the resolved expression on Ethan's face. I'll take Lily with me, Ethan said firmly, placing the envelope on the kitchen counter. But I want her documents. All of them. And we're going to sign a paper saying she's coming to work as a paid ranch hand, nothing more. Sandra's face darkened. That wasn't our arrangement. It is now, Ethan replied, his voice hardening. Or I walk out of here and report what you're doing to every authority I can find. For a tense moment, it seemed Sandra might explode in anger. Then, calculating the risks, she stomped to a drawer and pulled out a folder. Fine. Take her. She's nothing but trouble anyway. 20 minutes later, with proper documentation signed and Lily's personal papers secured, they drove away from the farmhouse. Lily sat silently in the passenger seat, her duffel bag clutched tightly on her lap as if she feared it might be taken from her. Are you hungry? Ethan asked, breaking the uncomfortable silence as they reached the main highway. Lily nodded hesitantly. There's a decent diner about 20 minutes up this road. We can stop and get some food, talk about what happens next. The first weeks at Horizon Ranch were an adjustment for both of them. Ethan showed Lily to the guest house, a cozy one-bedroom structure about 50 yards from the main house. It had once been used for ranch hands during busier seasons, then briefly converted for guests back when his wife had dreams of starting a bed and breakfast. Now it would be Lily's sanctuary. It's not much, Ethan said as he set her bag down inside the door. But it's clean. Bathrooms through there. Kitchen's basic but functional. Lily stood in the middle of the small living area, taking in the simple furnishings. A comfortable-looking sofa, a small dining table with 2 chairs, shelves with a few books. Through an open door, she could see a bedroom with a real bed, not just a mattress on the floor like she'd had at Sandra's. It's perfect, she whispered, running her fingers along the back of the sofa. After breakfast the next morning, Ethan outlined the day's tasks. He started Lily with simpler jobs, feeding the chickens, collecting eggs, helping in the garden she'd begun to resurrect from neglect. She took to the work with determination if not skill, asking questions when needed but otherwise keeping to herself. In the evenings they would share a meal, Lily proving to be a capable cook even with limited supplies. Then she would retreat to the guest house and Ethan would sit on his porch, watching the sunset and wondering what he'd gotten himself into. By the end of the second week, Ethan noticed changes in Lily. The haunted look in her eyes began to fade. She started to gain weight, her face filling out from regular meals. Sometimes he would catch her humming quietly as she worked in the garden or fed the horses. For his part, Ethan found himself speaking more than he had in months. Little things at first, instructions about ranch work, comments about the weather. Then stories about the animals, explanations of why he did things a certain way. Lily listened attentively, occasionally asking questions that showed genuine interest. One evening, as they sat on the porch after dinner, watching a spectacular sunset paint the sky in shades of orange and purple, Lily broke their comfortable silence. Do you have any pictures? Of your family, I mean. Ethan stiffened slightly. He rarely looked at the family photos anymore, the pain still too raw. But something in Lily's gentle question made him nod. I'll show you. He returned with a worn photo album and sat beside her on the porch swing. Opening to the first page, he pointed to a wedding photo. That's Sarah, my wife. We were married for 15 years. Lily leaned closer, studying the image of a beautiful woman with a bright smile and kind eyes. She looked so happy. She was most of the time. Even when she got sick. He turned the page to reveal a boy with his mother's smile and Ethan's blue eyes. And that's Tommy. He would have been 16 this year. He has your eyes, Lily observed softly. Ethan nodded, his throat tight. He was a good kid. Smart. Always had his nose in a book about animals or nature. They went through more photos, family vacations, birthdays, everyday moments frozen in time. With each page, Ethan found the words coming easier, memories he'd locked away spilling out as Lily listened intently. They would have liked you, he said finally, closing the album. Lily looked up, surprised. Why do you say that? Ethan considered the question. Sarah always believed in helping people. And Tommy, he had a way of seeing the good in everyone. He cleared his throat. You're doing well here. With the work, I mean. I like it here, Lily admitted. It feels safe. The word hung between them as the last light faded from the sky. As spring turned to summer, the ranch settled into a comfortable rhythm. Lily proved to be a quick learner, soon helping with more complex tasks around the property. She had a natural way with the horses that impressed even Ethan, who had grown up around them. The main house, neglected since Sarah's death, gradually transformed under Lily's care. Dust disappeared from forgotten corners, windows sparkled in the sunlight, and the kitchen became a place of good smells and warmth again. One day, returning from checking fences in the far pasture, Ethan found Lily in Tommy's room. She stood frozen when she saw him, a book in her hands and guilt on her face. I'm sorry, she said quickly. I was cleaning and... It's okay, Ethan said, surprising himself with the realization that it truly was. He nodded toward the book. That was his favorite. All about stars and constellations. Lily looked down at the astronomy book in her hands. He had so many books. He wanted to be a veterinarian. Or maybe an astronaut. Changed his mind every few months. Ethan smiled at the memory. But he always loved learning. Lily carefully returned the book to the shelf. I never got to finish school. Sandra pulled me out junior year. Ethan frowned. You could still get your GED. There are programs. Maybe someday, Lily said, glancing around the room that had remained untouched for so long. Would it be okay if I cleaned in here? Not to change anything. Just to take care of it. Ethan felt something shift inside him. A door long closed creaking open just a fraction. Yeah, that would be good. That night, Ethan dreamed of Sarah for the first time in months. Not of her illness or death, but of her in the garden, laughing as she showed Tommy how to plant tomato seedlings. In the dream, she looked up at Ethan and smiled, that knowing smile that had always made him feel both seen and accepted. It's time to live again, she said in the dream. When he woke, the words lingered like a whisper in the quiet dawn. Summer brought the county fair, an event Ethan had avoided since losing his family. But when Lily expressed interest in going, he found himself agreeing. I haven't been to a fair since I was little, she admitted as they drove into town. She wore a simple sundress Ethan had given her money to buy during a supply run. One of several modest outfits that had gradually replaced the few shabby clothes she'd arrived with. The fairgrounds bustled with activity, food vendors, livestock competitions, carnival rides, and craft displays. Ethan felt a pang of memory as they walked through the entrance, remembering Tommy's excitement in this same place years before. The cattle judging is at 2, he said, checking the schedule. Thought I might check out the competition. Can I meet you there? Lily asked, eyes bright with interest at everything around them. I'd like to look at the craft exhibits. Ethan hesitated. It would be the first time Lily had been alone in public since coming to the ranch. His protective instinct warred with the knowledge that she deserved independence. Sure, he said finally. Take your time. As Lily wandered through displays of quilts, preserves, and handcrafts, she felt a newfound confidence. 3 months at Horizon Ranch had changed her, not just physically with her healthier appearance and sun-kissed skin, but inside where it mattered most. She was examining a particularly intricate quilt when a voice behind her made her blood freeze. Well, look who it is. Lily turned slowly to find herself face to face with Derek Holloway, Sandra's boyfriend and the deputy sheriff who had helped keep her prisoner. His uniform was gone today, replaced by casual clothes, but the cruel smile was just as she remembered. Sandra's been looking everywhere for you, he said, stepping closer. Ran off with some cowboy, she said. I didn't run off, Lily replied, surprised by the steadiness in her voice. Mr. Miller hired me legally. Sandra has the paperwork and payment. Derek's smile didn't reach his eyes. That's not how she tells it. Says you stole from her before you left. She's mighty upset. People milled around them, unaware of the confrontation happening in their midst. Lily glanced around, looking for an escape route, for help. I didn't steal anything, she said firmly. And I'm not going back. Derek grabbed her arm, his fingers digging painfully into her skin. You don't have a choice, girl. Sandra's waiting in the car. Fear threatened to overwhelm her, but something new rose to meet it, the strength she'd been building day by day at the ranch. Lily raised her voice. Let go of me. Several heads turned. Derek's grip loosened slightly as he became aware of the attention. Everything okay here? Ethan's voice came from behind her, low and dangerous. Lily had never heard that tone from him before. Derek sized up Ethan. noting the weathered face, the strong build of a man who worked outdoors daily, the hard set of his jaw. "Just having a conversation with my girlfriend's daughter," Derek said smoothly, releasing Lily's arm. "Family matter." "She works for me now," Ethan said simply, moving to stand beside Lily. "And she's not going anywhere she doesn't want to go." Derek's face darkened. "You think you know what's going on here, Cowboy? This girl's got problems. Mental issues. Runs away, makes up stories." "That's enough," Ethan cut him off. "Lily, do you want to go with this man?" "No," she answered without hesitation. "I want to stay with you at the ranch." A small crowd had gathered now, watching the confrontation with interest. Derek noticed an actual uniformed deputy among the onlookers and seemed to recalculate his options. "This isn't over," he muttered, but he backed away, disappearing into the crowd. Lily's hands were shaking. "She's here. They came for me." Ethan gently touched her shoulder. "Let's go home." As they hurried toward the parking area, Lily spotted Sandra leaning against a car, smoking a cigarette. Their eyes met briefly across the distance. Sandra's face contorted with anger, but she made no move to approach. The drive back to the ranch was tense, both of them watching the rearview mirror for signs of pursuit. "They won't let this go," Lily said finally. "Sandra hates losing anything she considers hers." Ethan's hands tightened on the steering wheel. "You're not a possession." "To her I was," Lily said quietly. "Maybe I should leave. Go somewhere they can't find me." "And go where?" Ethan asked, glancing at her. Lily had no answer. When they reached the ranch, Ethan made several phone calls. First to his attorney in town, explaining the situation without revealing all the sordid details. Then to Sheriff Martinez, not Derek's direct supervisor, but the county sheriff who oversaw all deputies. "John, it's Ethan Miller. Got a situation I think you should know about." By evening, Lily had calmed somewhat, though she jumped at every sound from outside. They sat at the kitchen table, mugs of coffee growing cold between them. "Sheriff Martinez is a good man," Ethan assured her. "He's going to look into Derek's conduct. And my lawyer's drawing up restraining order paperwork for both of them." Lily nodded, though she looked unconvinced. "Sandra has connections. People who owe her favors." "So do I," Ethan said firmly. "I've lived in this county my whole life. People know me, know my family. That counts for something." Lily looked up, meeting his eyes. "Why are you doing all this for me? Still?" The question caught Ethan off guard. He'd been asking himself the same thing lately, especially as he noticed how his feelings toward Lily had been shifting. What had started as compassion and a desire to help had grown into something more complicated, an attachment he hadn't expected and wasn't sure was appropriate given their age difference and how they'd met. "Because you deserve better than what they did to you," he said finally. "And because." "Because what?" Lily pressed when he didn't continue. Ethan shook his head. "It doesn't matter. What matters is you're safe here. I promise you that." Later that night, unable to sleep, Ethan sat on his porch with his rifle across his lap, just in case. The moon cast silver light across the pastures, the familiar landscape somehow different now that he had someone to protect again. A week passed without incident. The restraining orders were filed, and Sheriff Martinez assured Ethan that he was investigating Derek's conduct. Life at the ranch returned to its routine, though Ethan insisted Lily not go into town alone, and he installed new locks on both houses. One evening, as summer heat lingered past sunset, they sat side by side on the porch swing. Fireflies blinked in the gathering darkness, and somewhere in the distance an owl called. "My birthday's next week," Lily said suddenly. "I'll be 20. Ethan looked over at her, surprised by the announcement. "We should do something to celebrate." Lily smiled. "I haven't celebrated a birthday since my dad died." "Then we definitely need to mark the occasion," Ethan decided. "What would you like to do?" Lily thought for a moment. "Could we have a picnic? By the creek? And maybe—" She hesitated. "Would you teach me to ride? A real ride, not just around the corral?" Ethan chuckled. "You've been dropping hints about that for weeks." "You said I wasn't ready," Lily reminded him. "Maybe you are now." Ethan watched a firefly land briefly on the porch railing. "A picnic and a riding lesson. That sounds like a fine birthday." They fell into comfortable silence, the swing moving gently beneath them. Ethan became acutely aware of Lily's proximity, the faint scent of the shampoo she used, the sound of her breathing. He should go inside, he thought. Keep his distance. But before he could move, Lily spoke again, her voice soft in the darkness. "I keep thinking about what Derek said at the fair. About me having mental issues." She turned to face him. Do you ever wonder if I'm not right somehow? After everything that happened? No, Ethan answered without hesitation. I see a strong young woman who survived something terrible and is rebuilding her life. There's nothing wrong with you, Lily. Tears glistened in her eyes, catching the faint light from the kitchen window. Sometimes I'm afraid I'll never be normal. That I'll always be damaged goods. You're not goods at all, Ethan said firmly. You're a person. A whole person. Without thinking, he reached out to brush away a tear that had escaped down her cheek. The touch was gentle, brief, but something passed between them in that moment, an electric current of understanding. Lily caught his hand as he withdrew it, holding it between both of hers. Thank you, she whispered. For seeing me. Ethan nodded, not trusting himself to speak. After a long moment, Lily released his hand and stood up. Good night, Ethan, she said, then made her way down the porch steps toward the guest house, her figure gradually fading into the darkness. Lily's birthday dawned clear and warm. Ethan rose early as usual but took extra care with breakfast. Pancakes from scratch, bacon, fresh fruit from the garden. He had just set everything on the table when Lily arrived from the guest house. Happy birthday, he greeted her, feeling strangely nervous. Her smile lit up her face. You remembered. Hard to forget when you only mentioned it a dozen times this week, he teased, gesturing for her to sit. Eat up. We've got chores to do before our picnic. After lunch by the creek, they walked along the water, Lily searching for interesting stones while Ethan pointed out tracks left by wildlife. The afternoon stretched lazily around them, time seeming to slow in the dappled shade. Can I ask you something? Lily said as they skipped stones across a calm pool in the creek. Sure. Do you ever think about leaving here? Starting over somewhere else? Ethan considered the question. Sometimes. After Sarah and Tommy died, I thought about selling everything. Too many memories. He skipped a flat stone that bounced 4 times before sinking. But this land's been in my family for 3 generations. Couldn't bring myself to let it go. Lily nodded thoughtfully. I've never belonged anywhere. Not really. Even before my dad died, we moved around a lot. And now? Ethan asked, watching her face. She met his gaze, something vulnerable and hopeful in her expression. Now I feel like maybe I could belong. Here. The words hung between them, loaded with meaning neither was quite ready to acknowledge. Ethan cleared his throat. We should head back soon. Animals need feeding before dark. They packed up the remains of their picnic and mounted the horses again. This time Ethan led them on a longer route home, showing Lily more of the ranch's 200 acres. The north pasture where the cattle grazed, the small apple orchard that had been his grandmother's pride, the ridge that offered views all the way to the distant mountains. As they crested the ridge, Ethan pulled Rusty to a stop. Wait. Look there. A truck was parked in front of the main house, one Ethan didn't recognize. Stay here, he told Lily, his voice tense. If you hear anything that sounds like trouble, ride to the Peterson place. You remember where that is? Lily nodded, fear clouding her eyes. The farm with the big red barn about 2 miles east. Good. Don't try to help me, just go. Straight there. Ethan urged Rusty forward, approaching the house cautiously. As he drew closer, he recognized the truck. It belonged to Sheriff Martinez. Relief flooded through him as he spotted the sheriff himself sitting on the porch steps. He turned and waved to Lily, signaling that it was safe. She nudged Daisy forward, joining him as he dismounted in front of the house. Afternoon, Sheriff, Ethan greeted, extending a hand. Everything all right? Sheriff Martinez stood, shaking Ethan's hand. Sorry to drop by unannounced, especially on a Sunday. But I thought you'd want to hear this news right away. He nodded respectfully to Lily as she dismounted. Mississippi. What news? Ethan asked, a knot forming in his stomach. Derek Holloway's been arrested, the sheriff said bluntly. And not just for harassing you two. Turns out he's been involved in a lot more than that, taking bribes, tampering with evidence. Had quite a side business going with a woman named Sandra Owen. Lily gasped softly. What kind of business? Ethan asked. Sheriff Martinez glanced at Lily, his expression softening. The kind that involves forcing vulnerable people into situations they don't want to be in. Human trafficking, to be plain about it. We've been building a case for months. Your call about him last week helped connect some dots. Lily's legs seemed to give out. Ethan quickly moved to her side, supporting her with an arm around her shoulders. Sandra? She managed to ask. In custody too, the sheriff confirmed. They've been running this operation for years apparently. You weren't the first, Miss Owen. But if things go right, you might be the last. Tears streamed down Lily's face, not of sorrow but of relief. Years of fear and uncertainty released in a flood of emotion. There'll be a trial, Sheriff Martinez continued. We'll need your testimony when you're ready. But there's plenty of evidence without it if that's too much. I'll testify, Lily said firmly, wiping away tears. I want to. The sheriff nodded approvingly. That's brave. But take your time, think it through. My office will be in touch. He tipped his hat. I'll let you folks get back to your day. Just wanted to deliver the news personally. After the sheriff drove away, Ethan and Lily stood in silence, processing what they'd learned. Finally Lily spoke, her voice steady despite her tear-stained face. It's over. Really over. Yes, Ethan agreed, his arms still around her shoulders. They can't hurt you anymore. Lily turned to him suddenly, wrapping her arms around his waist and burying her face against his chest. Startled, Ethan hesitated only briefly before returning the embrace, holding her as her body shook with sobs of release. It's okay, he murmured into her hair. You're safe. Autumn painted the landscape in golds and reds. The ranch work shifted with the season, preparing for winter, bringing in the last of the garden harvest, checking fences and outbuildings before the first snow. In the months since Lily's birthday, since the arrests of Sandra and Derek, life at Horizon Ranch had settled into a new pattern. Lily had given her statement to prosecutors, bravely recounting years of abuse and exploitation. The case moved forward, strengthened by testimony from other victims who had been located. One evening in late October, Ethan sat at the kitchen table, going through bills and paperwork while Lily cleaned up after dinner. The radio played softly in the background, a country song about lost love and second chances. I got an email back from the community college, Lily announced, drying her hands on a towel. They said with my test scores I could start the nursing program next fall. Ethan looked up, genuine pride warming his face. That's fantastic, Lily. You'd make a great nurse. It's just an idea, she said, sitting across from him. I like taking care of things. People. You certainly brought life back to this place, Ethan acknowledged, glancing around the kitchen that now always smelled of good food and coffee. Lily hesitated, then asked the question that had been on her mind for weeks. What happens when I go to college? With the ranch, I mean. Ethan set down his pen. We'll figure it out. Maybe hire seasonal help. The campus isn't that far. You could still live here, commute if you wanted. Is that what you want? Lily asked, her eyes searching his face. For me to stay? The question hung in the air between them, loaded with unspoken meaning. Ethan found himself at a crossroads, speak honestly about his growing feelings, or maintain the safe distance he'd carefully preserved. I want what's best for you, he said finally, taking the safer path. You deserve a chance to build the life you want. Something like disappointment flickered across Lily's face, but she nodded. Thank you. For everything. She stood to leave but paused at the doorway. Ethan? Yes. What if the life I want is here? Before he could respond, she was gone, the screen door closing softly behind her as she headed to the guest house. November brought the first snow, earlier than usual. Ethan woke to find Lily ill with a high fever. He moved her into the main house where he could care for her more easily. Through long nights of tending to her, he confronted the truth he'd been avoiding. He loved her not as a ward or employee or friend, but as a woman who had brought light back into his darkened life. During her fevered delirium, Lily confessed her own feelings, words Ethan couldn't be sure she'd remember when the fever broke. When she finally woke, clear-eyed and alert, they faced the truth together. Did I say anything strange while I was sick? She asked tentatively. Ethan hesitated. If you meant what you said about loving me, that made perfect sense. Lily's eyes widened. I said that out loud? You did. Ethan felt suddenly nervous. Did you mean it? Yes, she admitted, color rising in her cheeks. I know there are reasons why you might not feel the same. Lily, he interrupted gently. I've been fighting how I feel about you for months, telling myself all the reasons it wasn't right. But the truth is, I love you. Everything about you. Instead of answering with words, Ethan leaned forward and gently kissed her, a tender moment that sealed something between them that both had feared to hope for. 1 year later, on an unseasonably warm day in late November, Horizon Ranch hosted its first gathering in many years. An arch woven with autumn flowers stood at the end of a makeshift aisle in the pasture nearest the house. Lily walked toward Ethan in a simple white dress, escorted by Sheriff Martinez, who had become an unlikely friend. As she reached Ethan, he took her hands in his, blue eyes filled with a love that still amazed her. "You found me," she whispered, words meant only for him. "No," he replied softly. "We found each other." Under the vast Montana sky, surrounded by the land that had healed them both, they began their new life together, not as rescuer and rescued, but as equal partners who had each saved the other in different ways. And on the ridge overlooking the ceremony, a wild Mustang raised its head, watching the gathering below before disappearing back into the freedom of the open range. A reminder that sometimes the things that seem broken can become the most beautiful of all.